Hello, I am Robert, and you are welcome here in my busy little shop. I'm really excited. Today's project, I think, is a fun project. It's an easy beginner project, but an experienced leather worker can have fun doing it as well. You can go from something that's basic and simple to something that's fairly elaborate with just a little bit more time and effort. So I've got them right here, and let me get you on the workbench here and I'll show you what we're talking about. Getting started, I've got this journal filler, and I purchased, and you can use just about any of them. You just have to keep in mind that you have to adjust for the size of it, and the thickness is important as well. This is about 3/16 of an inch thick, so it really won't take a whole lot of extra leather to go around that as it would if it was thicker. So you just have to keep all those things in mind. The journal is 8 1/4 by 8 7/8, and the leather that works well for that is 9 3/4 by 9. That gives us enough room here for our seam and to get this inserted in there. If you get too close to the sewing part here, it gets it too hard to get tucked in, and it goes in there nicely. So what we're going to do first is we're going to cut some leather in that shape. Now, if you want, instead of lining up the edges when you put this strip of leather on there, you can overcut on both of it, have a larger seam allowance, and then trim it all to fit. And then your edge looks like it's die cut as opposed to trying to get it matched up. So it really depends on, would you rather spend the time to line it up and maybe do a little bit of sanding, or would you rather trim it to fit? So you can do it either way, whatever works best for you. So I've got some scraps of veg tan leather here. I'm going to use some of that, and we're going to make one of the styles that way. And then I have some strips of chrome tan leather here, and we're going to use that way. So you will have a couple different options, and then within those, then I'm going to show you some ways to embellish it so that it's more than just your typical journal cover. So let's start off by cutting some pieces of the vegetable tan leather. You also have to take into consideration the thickness of your leather on the fold over part. So I'm going to cut mine 9 by 9 3/4 inches. And so I'm going to look in here for some areas that don't have scars in it, but these are leftovers off of sides. Some of it's on the neck end, some of it was on the butt end, but when I had done other work, I was avoiding scars in here, and I'll be doing the same thing again, but I'm cutting in much smaller pieces, so it's easier to make use of that. So I'm going to cut a 3-inch wide strip through here. And I'm going to continue along here, and I'm going to cut the pieces I need for the outside. I'm going to cut at least one of those. I've got this scar over here. I'm going to trim that off. And you'll want to check on the inside. Sometimes that scar goes further than you think. And then I'll come over here 9 inches, and this will make one of the inner pieces. And I suppose you could use leather in here that has some defects and scars. It's on the inside of it. I find on these smaller projects, it's important to try to keep everything looking pretty consistent, because it's easy to look it over. It's not like a large project where if there's a little flaw here or there, it's not a big deal. This is a bigger deal to have a flaw because it's a small project. And we'll do the same out of this chrome tan leather. It's got kind of a cool embossing in it here. And I need a piece in here that's big enough for the outside. At this point, I've cut out the 4 inner pieces and 2 outer pieces in this leather. And then I have the 4 inner pieces and 2 inner pieces on the vegetable tan leather. And I'm going to show you a few different ways to do here. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm just going to do a simple tooling pattern on the outside of it, just to show you how just a little bit of work on here will make a big difference in how it appears. So I'm going to take this one here, and while I'm thinking of it, because I forget sometimes, I'm going to take 2 inner pieces of this, and the inner pieces of the chrome tan won't take the stamp very well, but I'm going to go ahead and put my maker's mark here. Sometimes I forget and I'm trying to do it when it's all assembled. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to just put a simple pattern on the outside of it here to show you how you can dress it up. And you don't have to be great at tooling to make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to walk outside, I'm going to spritz this down. I'll be right back. I've got it wet. I'm actually going to set this aside for just a moment and let that water soak in and get even. It's dark now because of getting it wet. And it's not terribly thick, so it shouldn't take a lot of time for it to happen, but it'll soak in, it'll get more even, and it'll start to turn to its original color. And then that would be a good time to do the tooling. So I'm gonna set this aside. All right, now that the leather has pretty much about returned to normal color, little dark areas here, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do my tooling. So I'm gonna set my wing dividers to 5/16 of an inch. And I'm just going to put a light crease. I'm not trying to get crazy with it here, just something to follow. And this tooling pattern is going to go all the way around the perimeter. And if you wanted to tool the whole thing, you could tool the whole thing. But I just wanted to show you how a little bit of time and effort here can yield a bigger difference. I'm just going to put a really simple pattern on here. And you'll see it develop as it goes here. And with this curved in the corner, you can lightly imprint it here to kind of get an idea of how it's going to be. Looks like I need a little more moisture. If you're going to condition leather for tooling and it's thick leather, a lot of times you'll dip this and then you'll cover it with plastic and let it sit for several hours for the moisture to get even throughout it. So I'm just doing a really quick pattern along the edge here, so I think I could work along here before it dries up on me. So I'm going to look and see how this corner comes together because I don't want it to overlap each other. So it looks like I need to stop about 1/8 of an inch from the corner. And you've seen me use this before. I've used this on some sheaths recently. It's a fairly easy tool to use. Now when I get down here towards this side, I'm going to just lightly imprint and check for my layout. And I can squeeze this pattern together or stretch it out a little bit to come out to this corner. So I need to stretch it out just a little bit. And I'm actually going to start in this corner and go back so my corners will be correct. And if I'm adjusting it, it's in this run here, and it's less visible or less noticeable to the naked eye if you don't have those adjustments in the corner so much. All right, so that gives me my run along there. I'm going to continue to do this around the rest of the way. I'm going to add this little cedar on here. And this thin leather, you got to be careful. You can easily just drive a hole right through it. You can develop a lot of different patterns with your leather tooling across this leather, but like I said, I'm just trying to show you how, just a little bit of time. I am far from a good tooler of leather. I'm still in the process of learning. So I've got the two that are chrome tan leather. I've got the one that I tooled, and I thought I would take and do something a little bit different on this one. And so I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to eventually dye this one here, but I want to put a pattern here in this bottom corner. Let me show you what I have in mind. I've got this French curve here, and I'm going to take one of these. Let's see here. A little bit of what I'm looking for here. The next thing I need to do, I'm not sure I'm a fan of this so far, but I'm going to use my hole punch here. We're going to make a series of holes and get larger as we go. And I think I'm going to start here, not up there in that point. All right, so you end up with something like that. I'm gonna rub some dye on here after I erase my pencil marks. And then we'll come back to this one here in a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I don't want to get confused of which side is which. See, the 9 inches is on the vertical, and the flaps will get attached here on the direction that's 9 3/4. So what I'll do is I'll take one of my tooled ones, and I'm going to make this the back, and one untooled one, and this will be the front. And all I need to do first is I'm going to take and put a light pencil mark on the leather here on the inside. A light pencil mark here. And my goal is to have an area that I can put contact adhesive up to and around here. And I want about 1/4 inch. Maybe a little less. 3/16 would probably be ideal. If you wanted to run a pencil line through there to help you to judge that, that's fine as well. It's going to be hidden. Next, we're going to assemble these that I did with the veg tan. This has got the tooling on it. Line this up. The veg tan is easier to finish than chrome tan is as far as sanding and burnishing to get a nice clean edge. You'll want to make sure that your tooled leather is thoroughly dry before you tap these together, because it would be easy to flatten out that pattern. And you could, if you made an error, you could go back over some of it and refreshen it. But I'll also turn it over this way so I can keep an eye on what I'm doing here. And I'm mainly getting the edge, because the edge is what's important on this. If you wanted this pattern to stand out more, you could oil it and put resist on it and use an antique in it to highlight that. Let's see what this blue looks like on the other side. I think it's really pretty. I'll put a clear on this. I think it's pretty cool. Once I have my covers layered up, I want to address my edges here. If I've got any that need to be trimmed, I need to do that now. If I have any that need to have sanding or corners taken care of, then I want to do that now. And so I'm just going to go through here and clean up some of these edges so that my seam allowance doesn't change on the outside here. And I'm not greatly changing the size of this. I'm just cleaning up these edges a little bit as I go. It'll make for a cleaner project when I'm finished. And then I'll want to go through here and take care of the corners. You could do this with just your knife as opposed to a corner tool like I'm using. I'll show you. You could cut the corner like this, take two little more nicks on it, and it makes a nice looking corner. Edges and the corners somewhat taken care of. I'm gonna burnish these vegetable tan leather ones when we're done. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll meet you at the sewing machine. All right, so now we're ready to sew them. I want to start and stop what will be the back. This is the front. If you remember, I've got my logo on the inside of the back. So I want to start here on my sewing, and I'm going to come back and overlap there. I'm using 207 thread, sorry. I'm using 207 thread. I've got the length set to 4 on the Cobra 26. I've got my edge set to about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And there's my spot. So I'm gonna start right here on the back, and I need to hold the thread for the first 3 stitches. And I'm just gonna kind of step my corner here a little bit. You know, it's going to come out perfect to a straight corner. I do have bronze thread. I could switch to bronze, but I think the black looks pretty good with this leather. It's got a little bit of a highlight in the texture on it. this is the one that we tooled, and I'm going to do the same. I want to start here on this. Now that we've finished the sewing, I've got threads to take care of here. I'm going to use my thread zapper and cut and melt the ends of these. I'm just going to go ahead and round the corners here with this number 2 Ron's Edger. Sounds like I need to sharpen it. I've had this veg tan leather for a while. It's a little bit harder than some. Great way to use up leftover materials. This is the one that's tooled. I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to oil it, so we'll see it here in a minute oiled. I think the black thread looks really good here with the blue. Yes, I'm really liking that. Let's go ahead and get the clear on this, and then I'll oil the other one. I've done this before where the journal that I put inside had an orange cover on it, and it really looked cool with that orange showing through. Didn't show burnish in the edges. I figured by now you've seen me do that before. I've got videos of finishing the edges. So now I'm going to oil this one. When I oil this, I don't want to oil the inside here. It will be a lot darker where that's exposed on the outside. So I'm going to be careful just to oil the inside flap. I'll let that oil soak in a little bit, and then we'll come back and look at our final products. So let's insert the filler now. I've got this oiled. I think it's got a really nice color to it. You could oil it again. You could put a clear on it to protect it. I'm going to let this one go. It'll get its own patina. And now we need to insert it. And it helps sometimes to get in the corner here and stretch these out a little bit here to be able to put the insert in. Slide it in here. If the cover on your journal is thick, remember to allow extra room for that, because it will take up more space and take a larger cover for it. There we go. Got my maker's mark there. And that journal is ready. So this is the natural one with oil. Then we've got the pebbled finish. Once again, I made 2 of those. Once again, I think very pretty as well. I had another one that I was working on earlier. This is made out of a little bit thinner chrome tan leather. That's in a red mahogany. And then the one we're waiting on here is the blue one, and the leather has to get formed here nicely, and it will over time. But there's the spiral. I think it looks pretty cool. You could back that up with a piece of like lambskin leather, glued in behind there to give it a specific color. I guess you could put cardstock in there, but I'd be afraid that it would move. Maybe if you cut a piece of cardstock that was the complete size and slid it in there, you could put red or orange or whatever color you wanted in there. So again, I think that blue is really pretty. I've got one here I did in a chocolate brown. That's upside down, that's the front. So a nice chocolate brown. I've got one here in a more of a neutral colored chrome tan leather. Here's one that I did that is, this one here was a piece of veg tan leather. It had lots of scars and such on it. But instead of hiding that, I just went ahead and went with it. I think it gives it kind of a cool look as well. And another one that way and another one that way. Well, there you go. A fun Saturday afternoon project. We have Christmas coming up. We've got gift giving season here upon us, and just some opportunity to make something special for someone. You could do a lot of tooling on this if you're into tooling. And but that's it. Well, there you go. I think you'll agree that it can be a simple project with just plain leather, or you can get very creative and make something very elaborate. I've made some as well that I put metal spots on. You could do a concho on it. You could do a lot of things to dress this up. You could put designs on there with stitching. The limit is your imagination and what you can come up with. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for being here today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.